What if the next major Middle East conflict has already been mapped out from space and the world is only seeing fragments of it now? What if satellite images released thousands of miles away are not just intelligence leaks, but deliberate signals in a shadow war between great powers? Tonight, a question echoes across military command rooms and intelligence agencies alike. Have U.S. bases near Iran just been exposed? And if so, why now? Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. What you are about to hear is not speculation pulled from rumor mills or anonymous forums. This is a rapidly unfolding intelligence narrative that is already reshaping strategic calculations across the Middle East. Chinese state-linked media outlets have released what they claim are satellite images identifying the locations of U.S. military facilities positioned around Iran. The timing is precise, the imagery is deliberate, and the message appears calculated. This is not merely about geography. It is about power projection, deterrence, and warning shots delivered without a single missile launched. Here is what makes this moment unsettling. These images did not appear during a declared crisis or a direct military exchange. They surfaced during a period of heightened but controlled tension when diplomacy still claims to be alive. That alone raises the stakes. Intelligence leaks of this nature are rarely accidental, and when they are amplified by state-aligned media, they often serve a purpose far beyond public awareness. The real question is not whether the images are accurate, but what reaction they are meant to provoke. According to analysts who have reviewed the satellite visuals, the images appear to show known U.S. logistical hubs, airfields, and support installations across the Persian Gulf region. Some are long acknowledged, others less discussed in public discourse. Runways, hardened shelters, fuel depots, radar arrays, and naval access points appear highlighted with annotations that leave little ambiguity about their intended message. This is where the first loop tightens. If these locations are already known to adversaries, why spotlight them now? And why through media rather than military channels? To understand this, we need to step back and examine the strategic chessboard. Iran sits at the center of one of the most militarized regions on Earth. Around it lies a network of U.S. forward operating bases designed to enable rapid response, air superiority, intelligence gathering, and missile defense. This network is not secret in concept, but its operational details are typically obscured. By circulating satellite imagery, Chinese media may be attempting to peel back that obscurity, even if only partially, and in doing so, alter the psychological balance. The emotional weight of this moment cannot be understated. For civilians living in the region, these images are a reminder that any escalation would not be distant or abstract. For military planners, they are a signal that surveillance is constant and that visibility cuts both ways. And for global audiences, especially in the West, this raises an uncomfortable realization. Strategic assets thought to guarantee security are themselves under relentless observation. Another loop closes in when we consider who benefits from this exposure. China has no direct military confrontation with the United States in the Middle East, yet it maintains deep economic and diplomatic ties with Iran. By highlighting U.S. military infrastructure, Beijing may be positioning itself as an information power broker, subtly reinforcing its alignment with Tehran without deploying troops or weapons. This is influenced through imagery, and it is increasingly central to modern warfare. Secondary hooks emerge as analysts debate the implications. Some argue this is a warning to Washington that any strike on Iran would be met with prepared defenses and known targets. Others believe it is a message to regional allies, suggesting that hosting U.S. forces places them squarely within the scope of future conflict. The suspense lies in the ambiguity. No official statements accompany the images, leaving interpretation to fill the void. Now consider the technological layer. Modern satellite imagery is not exclusive to superpowers anymore. Commercial providers offer high-resolution visuals that can be purchased or repurposed. But the difference here is framing. When state media curates, annotates, and distributes these images, they become narrative weapons. They tell a story of reach, awareness, and inevitability. And that story can be just as destabilizing as a military exercise. This leads us to the next emotional connection point. Viewers in the United States and Europe often perceive overseas bases as distant abstractions, dots on a map. But those dots represent thousands of service members, complex supply chains, and commitments that tie national security to volatile regions. When those bases are publicly highlighted by rival powers, it forces a reevaluation of risk, cost, and consequence. As the loop tightens again, military experts note that revealing base locations can serve as a form of deterrence. By implying that targets are known, an adversary signals that retaliation would be precise and overwhelming, yet deterrence is a fragile balance. The same information that discourages attack can also invite preemptive thinking, especially in a crisis where timelines shrink and miscalculations multiply. There is also the question of escalation control. By using media rather than official diplomatic or military channels, the message remains deniable. If challenged, it can be dismissed as analysis or reporting rather than policy. This gray zone tactic is increasingly common, blurring the line between journalism and strategic signaling, and it keeps audiences, including you, guessing about the next move. Another suspense hook emerges when we look at reactions or the lack of them. U.S. officials have largely refrained from responding directly to the images. This silence can be interpreted in multiple ways. It may indicate that the information revealed is already considered outdated or irrelevant, or it could signal that responding would only amplify the intended psychological effect. Silence, in this context, is itself a strategic choice. For Iran, the images serve a different emotional function. They reinforce a narrative of encirclement, a long-standing theme in Iranian defense doctrine. By showing U.S. bases clustered around its borders, the imagery supports domestic messaging that frames Iran as under constant threat. This, in turn, can justify military spending, missile development, and regional proxy activity in the eyes of the Iranian public. As we move deeper into this analysis, consider the broader global reaction. European defense circles are watching closely, aware that any Middle Eastern conflict would have immediate economic and security repercussions for Europe. Energy markets, migration flows, and alliance cohesion all hang in the balance. The release of these images is not just a regional issue, it is a global one. The suspense continues as we examine precedent. History shows that public exposure of military infrastructure often precedes shifts in posture. Sometimes it leads to reinforcement and hardening. Other times it prompts dispersal and concealment. In rare cases, it accelerates diplomatic engagement to avoid confrontation. Which path will be taken here remains uncertain, and that uncertainty is the core of the tension. Another loop brings us back to technology. Advanced image analysis, artificial intelligence, and open source intelligence communities can dissect satellite visuals in hours. Once released, they take on a life of their own, spawning interpretations, overlays, and speculative scenarios. Control over the narrative becomes nearly impossible, and that chaos can be strategically useful for those who initiated it. Emotionally, this moment taps into a deeper anxiety about transparency in the modern age. When everything can be seen from above, secrecy becomes relative. Power shifts toward those who can interpret, frame, and weaponize information fastest. The images of U.S. bases near Iran are a case study in this new reality. As we approach the final loops, ask yourself this: if these images are a warning, who exactly is being warned? Washington, Tehran, regional allies, or the global public? The answer may be all of the above, and that multiplicity of audiences makes the message more potent and more dangerous. The final suspense hook lies in what comes next. Will there be counter releases showing Iranian missile sites or underground facilities? Will diplomatic channels heat up behind closed doors? Or will this moment fade only to resurface during the next crisis with even higher stakes? The silence before the next move is where history often pivots. What is clear is that we are witnessing a shift in how power is displayed, not through parades or press conferences, but through pixels and perspective. Satellite images, once the domain of classified briefings, are now instruments of global signaling, and their impact is immediate and far-reaching. As viewers, staying informed means looking beyond the surface. It means questioning why information appears when it does and who benefits from its release. This story is not over. In fact, it may only be beginning. The bases remain where they are, the tensions remain unresolved, and the eyes in the sky are not blinking. Stay alert, stay informed, and keep watching closely, because the next development in this unfolding strategic drama could redefine the balance of power in the Middle East and beyond.